stress. So this type of stress is harmful because when it circulates in the body, it damages the thought processes. It damages the arteries, every organ of the body, because that stress response is needed for short-term survival. But in our day-to-day society, we find that we lack exercise, we lack the ability to get rid of the stress, and it builds up in the body. Therefore, we find that exercise is one of the best ways to release stress, because we find that when stress builds up in the system, it has to be filtered through the nervous system and the muscles. And when we face this type of stress, as we do in this modern society, 9-to-5 jobs, trying to make ends meet, receiving all the bad news of everything that happens around the world, causing the heart to become despondent, putting us in a permanent anxiety type of state, we find that it weakens the immune system. The body has to work overtime in order to regulate its processes. In the field of psychoneuroimmunology, which refers to the processes that takes place in our minds, our thought patterns, there's a link between what we think about daily, how it interacts with our breathing and the heart rate, and our immune system. So our thought patterns has everything to do with how we feel, has everything to do with our health. And what's very significant is that the Prophet ﷺ taught us courtesy in all matters. He taught us to be considerate of the heart of other Muslims. He taught us that if you smile, it is a charity. He taught us to treat people with kindness, to give people the benefit of the doubt, to give your Muslim brother more than 70 excuses before you judge him, before a bad thought crosses your mind. And if we correlate all the advices of the Prophet ﷺ and we look at modern scientific findings, we'll find a perfect recipe to emotional well-being. So let's look at anger, one of the most destructive emotions that faces mankind. If you look at what happens when the body becomes angry, there's heat within the belly. It causes the organs to become heated. The veins in the eyes become red and prominent. It makes us aggressive. Often we find that in a state of anger, we tend to do things that we would never do, irrational things, things that we regret. Some would consider anger to be a temporary state of madness. However, we shouldn't suppress our anger. Suppressing the anger means that at some stage, the anger will become explosive. However, the Prophet ﷺ taught us how to channel this anger. And we find that his advice is governed around controlling the anger. So certainly the Sahaba would come to the Prophet ﷺ and ask him advice. Give me some advice that will improve my character or improve my deen or give me a better life. And the Prophet ﷺ would tell the Sahaba, do not become angry. The Prophet ﷺ also asked the Sahaba, who would you consider to be a strong or a powerful person? Is it the one who throw people down to the ground, who is able to wrestle? The Prophet ﷺ said, no. It is he who masters his anger. The one who can control his anger is considered to be the strong person. The Prophet ﷺ also mentioned that the best of you are those who are slow to anger and swift to cool down. Beware of anger, for it is like a live coal, a burning coal in the hearts of men. The Prophet ﷺ also mentioned that when you feel a state of anger coming on, seek refuge from the shaitan. Because we find that anger is a fire emotion and it comes from shaitan. And the Prophet ﷺ advised us to perform wudu as a way to calm down that anger. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that if we are standing, sit down in that state of anger. If you are sitting, lie down. If you become angry, try to remain silent. It's all very difficult to. However, if we follow one advice, you'll see slowly it becomes a bit easier. The wudu, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that anger is from the shaitan. The shaitan was created from fire, and fire is extinguished with water. So when you become angry, perform wudu. So all of these recommendations is given to us for what? Often we think when we control our anger, it's to the benefit of other people. When we control our anger, we are protecting our internal organs. We are protecting the regulatory system. We are protecting our heart, the blood pressure. In a state of anger, we find that many people suffer heart attacks, strokes, various type of illness conditions that leads on to psychological conditions. So every advice within the Sunnah is given to us for our own protection. The act of forgiveness. We know that the entire deen is about forgiveness. Allah describes the ability for someone to show mercy on another. That person will have access to Allah's mercy. Allah says that whoever on the earth shows some type of mercy to the creation, the one who is the creator will show mercy to him. So definitely we are advised towards forgiveness. So yes, it's true that when you are oppressed, you have a right to become angry with a person. You have a right to demand justice. But once that phase has passed, the phrase to forgive and forget, when we think about it, we think that if we forgive somebody, we're letting that person off the hook. But studies have shown that those individuals that cannot forgive actually harbor hate, malice that affects the body's processes. Daily thought patterns go through your mind and you think about what this person did to you, even though that person was wrong. And you go through this deep type of sadness and depression and anger and guilt, and you the only one that's being affected. Whilst that person carry on with their life, every day there's people that harbor enmity for years. And that enmity causes them to degenerate. It causes their organs to age. It causes them to become ill. It increases blood pressure, high sugar levels. It affects the mind, the thought process, and their productivity. So forgiveness is not something that we do for other people. We do it for ourselves. And the deen has given reward for us when we forgive. So every sunnah, every act that gets reward is not only to benefit the society, it benefits ourselves first. The first person to apologize is said to be the bravest. The first one to forgive is the strongest. And the first one to forget is the happiest. So if you're able to put that chapter behind you and understand that I'm doing something that is well recommended in the Sunnah, I will find reward in this, and you can truly forget about the matter, you will find your road to happiness will be much easier. So people that go through traumatic events, we find that the people that are able to go through a system of counseling with the Islamic recommendations find healing quicker. Today there's a huge study going into the field of prayer medicine where they recognize that people of deen, religious people that follow the Sunnah, they have better coping mechanisms when they struck with difficulties in life, as opposed to those people that do not follow any type of deen. So understand that our way of life doesn't only govern us in terms of keeping us away from bad, it prevents things from occurring. It prevents harm from escalating. So the sooner we practice on the Sunnah, the better for us. So understand that emotions is a well-explained subject within Tibb Nabawi. The Prophet taught us how important it is for the doctor or the physician to be in a good spirit, in a positive attitude when healing. It's very important when people are ill that you uplift their spirits. You do not dampen their spirits. You don't bring them bad news while they're in a state of illness. It's very important to compliment people. Because when you compliment people, you're actually attracting good barakah to yourself. Because when you compliment somebody, they smile, they feel good. So it's very important to cover up any type of harm that you see in society. Because the type of harm that you see, when it's spread, the harm is maximized. And in that, it can cause illness amongst people. If you see something and you transfer the information to somebody else, the sound or thinking about that harm can cause harm to somebody else. So Tibb Nabawi recognizes that we have illnesses of the heart. And this refers to spiritual illnesses, but it also refers to illnesses connected to our emotions. Worry, the worry that we have for sustenance. And we find that the deen is full of advices when it comes to telling us that Allah is the Razik, telling us that we have to put in the effort. Before we were born, our rizq was written for us. So it's very important to connect to this ahadith when we're in a state of worry. Therefore, you find the entire deen is about nasiha. When you're in a state of distress, understand that at that time, the shayateen is busy with your thoughts. So go to people, come to the masajid, sit in gatherings of adhkar, go to a pious individual and ask them advice, and they will guide you to the right path. So the entire deen is about nasiha and it's about jama'ah. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that the illnesses of the heart is connected to the illnesses of the body. When the heart is uneasy, the entire body is uneasy. The Prophet ﷺ said that fi jasad, in the body there is a lump of flesh. That if that lump of flesh is sound, then the entire body is sound. If that lump of flesh is corrupted, then the entire body is corrupted. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that, behold, that this is the heart. So if we talk about the heart from a spiritual aspect, we can see that if it's corrupted, all our deeds are corrupted. If you look at it from a physical aspect, if there's a blockage in the heart, the entire body won't receive proper blood supply. And if you look at it from the emotional aspect, if the heart is uneasy, then our entire day, entire lives become gloomy. So understand this deen gives us the tools to uplift ourselves and each other. Imam Nabawi also came to set down important principles of healing, like seeking the cure. So when you find yourself in a state where the heart is uneasy, understand there are people in our society that has a natural talent to give you that counseling. Some individuals have a counseling nature. You sit in a company, all they're doing is listening to your problem, and that's enough for you. So seek counseling. When we talk about counseling, we don't refer to sitting in a psychologist's room on a sofa and being termed a certain illness condition. Counseling is talking to each other, giving each other a good word, smiling. Counseling doesn't refer to what society thinks about counseling in like a negative stereotype. So the deen, and we find that throughout the progression of Tibba Nabawi, there was a integration of faith and science, whereby the Muslims excelled in the fields of psychology, of medicine, in astronomy, in architecture, in mathematics, in every field, because they based their study on the deen. And we find that the Prophet ﷺ's ahadith was the building blocks for the advancement in medicine. At a time when diseases were said to be incurable, there's no cure for the disease, the Prophet ﷺ said that لِكُلِّ دَاءٍ دَوَاء, for every illness there is a cure. He also said, مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ مِن دَاءٍ إِلَّا أَنزَلَ لَهُ شِفَاءً, that Allah has not sent down an illness except that He has also sent down its cure. So this should bring consolement to the heart of the patient. And in that time, we find the great physicians of Tib curing diseases based on this hadith, knowing that generations before them said that there's no cure to this illness, but their prophet said, the one who have a connection to Allah said there's a cure to this illness, and because of that they cured the diseases. So therefore it's very important for us never to have this idea that diseases cannot be cured. Yes, we might not have the remedy right now, but it doesn't mean that there is no cure. And we find certain illness conditions that's said to be incurable, but people are finding cures. So very important to realize that Allah is the healer. And that is the information that comes from the Quran, it comes from the ahadith, where the Nabi Ibrahim, when he describes Allah, he says Allah is the one that feeds him and gives him water. وَإِذَا مَرِضْتُ فَهُوَ يَشْفِينَ, that when I become ill, it is He who cures me. In one narration, it was mentioned that Nabi Musa suffered a stomach complaint at one time. And we know that the Anbiya, they had a direct connection to Allah. And he asked Allah for a cure. And Allah said, go to this tree and eat this leaf. And he ate the leaf and he found the cure. At the latest at a later stage, he suffered from this condition again. And he went straight to the tree. And the cure didn't work. And he asked Allah about it. And Allah said that I'm the one that places cure in my creation. So understand that healing can be found anywhere depending on where Allah places that cure. It is for us to have yaqeen that the cure exists and to use the means like Tib Nabawi and modern medicine. And through that we will find the cure. So our attitudes towards our illness conditions is very important. And of course, when we're struck by terminal conditions, the heart becomes saddened. It's a normal human emotion, and we cannot tell people, become happy, get out of this state of sadness, because we don't understand what they're going through. And certain illness conditions affect your hormones, which affects your moods. So there's mood swings. It's for us to be patient with the individuals, research about the condition. So within Islam, we find that every act of ibadah consoles the heart in some way. Dua. When we engage in dua correctly, whatever matter we go to Allah with will be resolved. If we hand over with yaqeen, we will walk away from that musalla in a better state when it comes to our heart. If only we give the way the Prophet ﷺ said, hand over the matter completely. If you look at the state of wudu, what it does to the body, the cleansing of the body, the different postures of salah, going on hajj, which removes all the worry, the guilt, everything that held us back for years can be removed on the Mount of Arafah. So this entire deen is about protecting our hearts and our minds and our souls. Within Islam, we find that there's various concepts that can be linked to wellness today. The concept of meditation. We find that the Nabi Muhammad ﷺ, he would often go to the cave of Hira, where he would isolate himself from the community and he would engage in adhkar, connecting him to Allah. Today, modern science has shown that it's important for us to move away out of the hustle and bustle, to get away out of the high-rise buildings. So if you're working a 9-to-5 job, it's important to dedicate a half an hour to yourself in a quiet place, free of technology. If we engage with the technology for too long, it has an effect on the body. But if you are able to break away and engage in some type of adhkar, it will benefit the heart. We find within various Quran ayats, the Jannah is described with beautiful descriptions, where Allah creates a picture in the mind. So we find in modern medicine, this is known as guided imagery. When you suffer an illness condition, to use the imagination and think about a pleasant place, to think about the positive aspects of life, good memories, and all of this can bring you to a better state of health. Allah has also described the Quran as a form of mercy to us, as a form of guidance and a form of shifa'ah. A famous narration in the Ahadith compilation refers to a time where Sahaba was called in by a king to assist him with the removal of poison from his body. They recited Surah Fatiha, and Surah Fatiha was the shifa'ah. It healed him. So from that time we find that different ulama of tib would extract different verses of the Quran for healing. And today in modern science, studies were done on the effects of Quran on the environment. So modern science has shown that everything that's living interacts with each other, with one another. We interact with everything around us, whether we know it or not. And the interaction can either be positive or negative. So I'm sure we all have that family member that talks to their plants. And many people consider it to be crazy. But today, scientific proof shows that when there's a human connection to plants, the plants thrive much better. So try growing something and just throwing water on it and giving it just what it needs. And try talking to the plants, making a dua, positive energy. So studies have shown that something takes place that cannot be fully explained scientifically, but the effects can be measured. So studies were done on plant growth and Quran recitation. So at this Islamic university, they grew different type of plants in 4 different glass houses. And they expose each glass house to a different type of recitation. In one glass house, they told the individual to go inside and recite certain verses of the Quran, like Ayatul Kursi and Surah Yasin. In the other one, they said, go in there and just recite any form of Arabic that's not Quran related. In the other one, they instructed somebody to go in there and swear, use foul language. And in the other one, go in there and use a branded metal, a hot iron, and destroy other plants. And out of the study, it showed that wherever negative activity took place, the destruction of plants, foul language, the crops were inferior. As opposed to the area where Quran was recited regularly, the crops yielded a better, higher quality growth. So this study was also done in humans. So they took stressed individuals. So when you're stressed, the parameters can be seen in your body. By the mere sitting where you are, your body language says a lot about your condition. If you are sitting very tensed up, biting on the jaws, if your hands are sweaty, if the blood pressure is raised, if your pulse is up, these are all indicators of stress. And whatever we perceive through our senses, so our sight, nose, the taste, and our hearing affects our stress levels. So studies were done on individuals that were stressed, and they placed medical equipment to measure sweat secretion, electrical activity in muscles, because when we become tense, the electrical activity in muscle increases. They measured blood pressure, and then they played certain verses of the Quran. So they attached MP3s, headphones to the people. And if you look at the science of neuro-linguistic programming, which refers to the effects that the tongue has on the nervous system and the body, whatever you recite or say regularly affects your thought patterns, the nervous system, and every bodily tissue. So studies that were done on individuals that were stressed found that those individuals that heard the Quran recitation, and these studies were done on people that are not Muslim, that do not understand the Quran. To them it sounds just like the Arabic language. We found that the blood pressure became normal. The sweat secretion was zero. Electrical activity in muscles was zero. So you found that they quickly found a state of calmness whilst listening to the Quran that they don't understand. So my question is, what happens to us when we have full yaqeen in the Quran? When we understand the verses? Or even if we don't understand it, we believe every harf that comes from it. What happens to our state of mind? The study continued, and they tested the same individuals on recitation that sounds like the Quran, but it's not Quran. So similar maqamat, similar tunes were used, and the results were different. To show that the words of the Quran, the sound of the word, every harf, the laws of tajweed has an effect on the body. So in a time where we exposed to Quran recitation on the radio, on CDs, we often take it for granted. But think about when you hear that ayat and understand that your body is reaching out and absorbing the barakah and the healing from that ayat. And once our perception change to the healing that's present all around us, we will feel a better state of well-being. So if you look at the model of Medina, we see that the model of Medina was based on managing the emotions well. And there's no better way to manage the condition of the heart than by adhkar. As Allah says in the Quran, "Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub." That in the remembrance of Allah, all hearts find contentment. So let us increase in our adhkar, our Quran recitation, and by using this aspect of Tibb Nabawi, we will find a better state of healing for our emotions. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. Are there any questions? Okay, a question is asked. If anesthetic medicine is allowed in Islam, cosmetic medicine, so Botox and hair transplant, but not referring to reconstructive surgery, or referring to reconstructive surgery that may be due to an accident. So there's various opinions when it comes to this. So within the jurisprudence that relates to medicine, we find that when somebody undergoes some type of deformity due to an accident, then these type of reconstructive surgeries will be allowed. But it's very debatable when these type of reconstructive surgery is used in individuals to enhance what they consider to be beautiful. In that case, when people want to use it for cosmetic purpose, we also have to remember in the Quran where Allah says that the shaitan will deceive man to try to change Allah's creation. And we find with cosmetic surgery over and over that the results might last for a few days or months, but it comes at a detrimental effect later on because the body rejects that which is unnatural. Okay, the question is, does water with your meal, does it interfere with digestion? We find that when you're about to eat something, the body secretes different types of enzymes for digestion. And for some individuals, if they drink water or fluids with their meal, it dilutes the gastric acids, which makes digestion less effective. But it doesn't apply to everybody. So if you find that you often have indigestion, try to distance your fluids from your meal. So half an hour before you eat, have half a glass of water, or an hour afterwards, and see what's the difference. But this wouldn't apply to everyone. One question relates to last week's lesson about cupping therapy. Can a pregnant woman with high blood pressure have cupping done? So we find that some people, some pregnant ladies, they develop pregnancy-induced high blood pressure. So meaning that the state of pregnancy brought about high blood pressure. So in that case, we wouldn't do cupping. When it comes to pregnant women, cupping is not allowed over the abdominal area or the lower back. But like I mentioned last week, a full consultation is important. So a history, looking at the conditions. So cupping can be done on the upper shoulders to relieve stress, but we wouldn't do cupping very hastily in a pregnant lady because that she shares a certain blood supply with the growing baby. So there's many considerations when it comes to that. Also for individuals that want to go to a center, there's the Sama Center of Integrative Health. For cupping therapy, they have male and female practitioners that's registered cupping therapists. And they practice a lot of the medicine and therapies that I spoke about, emotional counseling, aromatherapy, aromatic medicine, the use of black seed, cupping therapy, dry cupping therapy. There's hydrotherapy, there's different workshops that are run for males and females on different topics, ladies' health, men's health, dietotherapy, and the list goes on. So if for those that's looking for cupping practitioners that's registered, visit the Sama Center, and inshallah you'll find healing through the Sunnah. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.